You guys may have already talked about it, I came in a little late. What is the actual, when it first came out, people were, oh, what she did is completely illegal. What's the actual legality of what she did? Is she authorized, per se, to do what she did?
Yeah, our
To me,
belief.
it seems a little out of point that one person can
Yeah.
completely change the whole law for a whole million gun owners in the state of Massachusetts. She can just oversee.
Yeah. Our belief is that she grossly overstepped the constitutional responsibilities of her office. So what she did was not legal, which is why there's several lawsuits that have been filed. She has not issued, again, to repeat, but she has not issued any sort of enforcement of what she said. So my comparison is, it's like me jumping on the Mass Pike and saying I want to do 125 today. I can say that. It's not necessarily legal, and unless I get caught or stopped, you know.
So there's no other recourse. She makes her decisions and her own thoughts legal. There's nobody to challenge them until it's taken to court. Is that what
Yeah,
you're saying?
Right,
the
right.
court is that recourse to determine the
So she
legality.
can decide what she wants tomorrow for anything,
Right.
under her interpretation.
Yep,
Now,
exactly.
Is there any
So it's almost
consequences for her decision, or can someone
Besides-
personally sue her for denying them their Second Amendment rights?
Yeah, and I think that's basically what NRA is looking to do, is file it from a civil rights perspective, saying your rights as consumers have been completely violated.
The day that she filed, the drop dead time was July 20th, midnight. A lot of people filed civil right violations. On her website, you can file a civil right violation. She hasn't responded to any of them.
Yeah,
I've
ironically,
got
it's
the release here.
yeah.
Yeah.
Ironically, it's her
got more
office
power
that
than the
handles
President
civil
of the
rights
United States.
violations. You know.
Basically, she's not going to respond to anybody because there's no one in the state higher than her.
No.
If there's no one-
No.
no one-
Right, no, exactly, no,
Takes it to court.
right, as a constitutional officer, she has that authority to interpret law, and it's up to us to force the courts to determine whether she's interpreting that law legally or not.
Yeah.
I've also tried, these gentlemen will tell you, I've been up in their offices. I've been to Charlie Baker's office. I've called Charlie Baker. He's on my speed dial. He's gone from, okay, we're looking into it, to we're just taking notes to see what people think, to not returning phone calls or emails. We have a Republican governor who's letting a Democrat change everything in the state, and he hasn't said boo. He's asked for clarification, but you would think, as the #1 dog in the state, he would make sure he gets the clarification. But we're not getting any help from his office either.
Why do you think that? I mean, why do you think he's thinking that way?
He's too busy.
What's his excuse?
Me personally, from little limited conversation I've had with him or anybody in his office, I think he's worried about the next election. Personally, that's me. I don't work with him. I don't work for him. Actually, he works for me. But I think that he's afraid to look at our state. Our state is notoriously liberal. There are way more Democrats in the House and Senate than there are Republicans. So for him to take that and run with it, it's political suicide. And unfortunately, I think that he thinks about that before he thinks about what she actually did.
His job's not politics. His job is to, abide by the law, and we voted him in, and, the people of Massachusetts are the ones he should be looking out for, not for his own political career.
Yeah.
And anyone who's elected, right?
Yeah.
Politician.
That's exactly right.
Stay there.
So because she's done this, and gun sales in Massachusetts are tracked, I mean, a legal gun owner, that you could look it up and see that I have a gun.
Yeah.
So is it possible that she could go back and look up every single person who bought this particular weapon legally and now somehow have them arrested or confiscated or something?
She says she's not going to, but raise your hand if you believe what she says. Yeah. I don't see any hands.
I'll tell you from my side, I was a cop for 13 years. I was a firearms instructor. All right, I've dealt with the state for firearms as far as purchase and sales. What she says isn't actually what's going or can happen. All right, she's not going to be in office forever. And what she says, where I won't go after us, me, them. She didn't put it on paper. So you could get a district attorney wherever in the state who says,
Right.
you know what, I think I'm going to go get those today.
Yep.
Because we are all, according to what she wrote, her enforcement action, we're all felons. Make no mistake about it. You're a felon. You're in possession of a firearm that she deems was sold illegally and is an illegal firearm and has been since the law was instated. So that's her outlook. She's put it in writing. So right now we're all in limbo. And because there's no clarification, we can't get answers to that. You could have a chief of police who says, you know what, I'm not a gun guy, go get him. and there's going to be hell to pay. You
Are
know?
they just testing to see how far they can push the people before they fight back?
I think they're looking to set a precedent nationally,
Absolutely.
and I think the attorney general might have succumbed to a political ambition to some degree.
Yep. Yeah, the fact that she
How's that gonna go over if we shoot back?
the fact that she spoke at the Democrat National Convention and that she's now going down to Orlando speaks to the fact that she's using this as a political. But,
Wait, I mean, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, from my understand, she kind of really broadly interpreted and, basically formed her own law, almost like an absolutist monarch did. What's to prevent her from, say, looking at, well, the AR-style firearms use a gas-operated action. Half the hunters in this state use a gas-operated auto-loading shotgun. What's to stop her from, okay, now all gas-operated autoloaders are now in that verboten category.
Yeah, I mean, make it perfectly clear. We're on a very slippery slope right now. We're on a very slippery slope because, say that she doesn't. What if the next attorney general is further left than she is?
Yeah.
Okay, which if that's possible, it could go there very quickly. So I think we are on a very slippery slope, and that's why we need to support. As Jared's actions have been, support the legal defense fund if at all possible, and we need to just try to move this through the court system as quickly as possible.
and to your point, the language that she used was very vague. It was any duplicate weapon or similar mechanisms. So basically, the
That's something
only
that scares me, similar mechanisms.
the only
Right,
firearms
right.
that really are exempt are revolvers or muzzle loaders, really, that don't have any other sort of automatic ejection of a cartridge or what have you. So, I mean, who knows if she starts ruling that a 9mm, because it uses a semi-automatic mechanism, is now illegal. It's like, that's pretty ridiculous. And it's also, I think, important to note, that's why we're here again today. This all happened in July, and we kind of waited, tried to see what would settle, but it's very important to not let this issue die down. I think she was counting on the fact that she'll issue it in July, everyone will go on their summer vacations, the legislature will go on recess, and it'll kind of go to the back burner and people will forget about it. So it's very important not to let that happen, to keep this issue kind of alive and on the forefront.
It's not going away.
No, it's not going to go away. Right.
But to that note, we have, the gun owners as a group, we've gotten quiet. The Baker office, the people who are answering the phone, were getting killed the first week. The second week, it died down. After the first month, they were getting a handful of calls a day. So we've quieted down as a group, and we can't let that happen. I can only do so much as one person. As a team, we need to get together, spread the word across the state, because if we don't speak up for ourselves, there's only a handful of people who are elected that do, and they're in the minority.
The important thing, and this is crucially important, we win on the issue. We win on the content. We have to win on the messaging as well, because the second someone says something like, "Oh, let's go, storm the state house," or fire back, or anything inflammatory, she's going to double down and say, "Now my life's been threatened. Look at those crazy right-wing lunatic gun owners." It's very important, as difficult as it can be, to be restrained in the language but strong in the message, because we win on the content of the message. And the fact that she's doing illegal things and overstepping the bounds, I just really, really urge you to not fall to the language that's inflammatory and that's going to allow her to go on a national tour and say, I stood up despite the death threats, despite people threatening to use their Second Amendment to take me out of office. I stood up against the gun owners. I don't want her to have the ability to use that message.
If any of you attended the Goal rally that was the Saturday after the E4, I know Jared was there, that was a pretty powerful message. Very impromptu, a couple days planning only, and there were several thousand people attending that. It was one of the biggest rallies I've ever seen in my 6 years in the legislature on the steps of the State House. It was phenomenal. Essentially blocking the street there. The duck boats were coming up. People were wondering what's going on. And it was pretty impressive, And I was thinking to myself during that rally that, it's not often I give up a Saturday to go hang out with 2,000 felons. And while I'm standing, I'm like, I've never felt safer in my life. And so it's just a matter of perspective on where you fall. on these types of issues. But we need to keep up that citizen activism in order to keep the pressure on. If you're going to wait for the government to solve this problem, don't hold your breath. Okay, we need everybody to just get involved, and whether it's attending a rally, talking to friends about the issue, donating $25 to the legal fund or whatever you can do. Please do get involved, because it takes an active citizenry to kind of overturn this kind of thing.
I don't speak for everyone here, but I'm sure a lot of us are afraid of repercussions from
Sure, absolutely.
them coming to confiscate thousands of dollars worth of firearms.
Yeah, I mean,
That's why a lot of people don't. They're supporting it, but
Yeah.
they're
No,
not
and
speaking up.
totally understood. I mean, if we just look at what happened with the IRS, if you were a conservative-leaning group, you were much more likely to get audited by our own IRS in the past several years.
Right.
So I certainly understand where you're coming from.
Yeah,
And there's a line to walk there, I think. Unfortunately, you have to say that there's a line to walk as far as speaking out against your government, but I understand your concerns. I would just encourage that there is strength in numbers. If 100,000 gun owners in Massachusetts all start getting, very active in this, they're not going to be able to single anybody out. So there's strength in numbers.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm already on every watch list anyway.
Probably there too.
On the no-fly list too. Yeah.
No, I can still fly, but being a law enforcement gun trainer who's an owner and an activist, I probably have a
Get you
drone
out of here.
hovering over me right now.
Yeah.
Would you say that encouraging people to sign up for their license to carry a firearm would be a good way to?
I think it sends a message. Absolutely sends a message.
Absolutely.
There's
Yeah.
more people that have licenses
Absolutely,
to
yeah.
carry.
Yes.
There's been a massive
Now they're
uptick.
looking-
Yes.
And we have a class tomorrow.
Yeah.
And there's been a massive uptick in just, people coming in for their license. Over the last
I mean,
10
even
years,
if people,
right?
they never even consider buying a firearm.
Yeah.
Go get your license to carry.
Sure.
That shows there's numbers.
Absolutely.
There's
Yeah.
been a massive uptick.
The irony with Obama and with this is Obama's been the best gun salesman
Yeah.
this country's ever seen.
Hillary's hot on his tails, though.
And if you look at the numbers, they released the numbers, and it was comical in a sense. The day before and 2 days before this directive, there was like 30 AR-15 sold, or assault weapons, whatever you want to call them, semi-automatic rifles sold on the Monday, and like 25 on the Tuesday. She issued this directive, and there was like 1,000 or something sold on Wednesday. The number went up just astronomically, and it was kind of comical.
25,000
Yeah.
before this was signed in this year.
Yeah.
This year alone, in this state.
Yeah.
You got to also look at, we're angry about it, but the nation is watching us right now.
Yeah.
My channel's not the biggest thing in the world, but I have a reach around the world. There's people from the UK that are following our situation. There are people from the UK that have donated to our cause. So we have the eye of the country. We just have to make sure we don't let everybody else down. Don't let our brotherhood down. We got to stay on this, because if we let her become a dictator, it's going to be a lot harder to stop her.
Yeah.
If they put a court injunction against her enforcing her rules?
It's a good question.
I mean, well, the other, like I had said, there's no one knows who enforces. So, until this lawsuit is settled, there's kind of in my opinion, not a legal opinion, in my opinion, there's kind of a status quo until the court makes a ruling one way or another and it goes through the appeal, because, I don't see anyone going out and making confiscations or stopping stuff. No, you're not going to be able to go to your local gun shop and buy something, but there's no one's going to knock on your door and enforce until this is all said and done. So it seems to be a status quo.
Like you said, there's no enforcement agency assigned to do it.
Exactly.
No, you're right.
Exactly.
As of yet.
If
Yeah.
Baker had a said, could he stop her from doing this himself? You won't. If he had a said.
I don't know whether he could issue something in an executive order that would supersede this, because there is a degree of separation there. They're both constitutional officers, so
Yeah.
that's outside my legal expertise. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes her more powerful than the government.
It'd be nice if he tried, though.
She did it in the first place, and there's nobody to stop her. There's nobody could say, this has gotta go somewhere, have people vote on it. She just
Yeah.
did it.
Yeah,
and
she-
that's it. There's nobody above her to stop
Yeah,
this.
she circumvented public opinion and public's right to have an open hearing, and she circumvented the legislature. So now the judicial review is the built-in check and balance. Unfortunately, it's a very long process. You know, I wish it was quicker, but you know, that's the process
If
is.
it's all illegally, then it shouldn't be really an issue.
She learned from Obama.
But there's no one to say definitively it was illegal without the lawsuit.
Going to court.
So,
But that office has been restricting our rights for many, many years.
Yeah.
I mean, they have their own, firearms list that is different from the the Board of Safety's list.
Yep.
So they have that, so you're restricted. We can, according to the safety board, get Glocks, the Kimbers. The Attorney General's list, though, however, restricts all that. So they have their own set of rules.
Yeah.
They've had for years.
But she puts that under consumer protection.
Correct.
You know,
Right.
stating that, that's dangerous for the consumer, which, everyone here knows is bullcrap.
Well, again,
cops carry it.
they have their own list, which
Yeah.
is different from the safety board's list.
Yeah, sure.
I got her release. One of the most dangerous sentences I see in here is the sale, transfer, and possession of any assault weapon as defined under section 121 is unlawful. Yeah, so, I mean, I've lived in this state since the 80s. I have weapons that I brought when I got out of the military that, where they come knocking for these things.
Well, we're in a situation like those of us who are fathers and want to pass our firearms on to our kids when they get of age. You can't do it.
You
Yeah.
can't, no transfer,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
You can't
sell
find
to anyone.
you can't find a federal firearms licensed dealer in the state who will do a transfer to any questionable gun.
yeah, a collection or a
Even though the
historical.
gun might be legal, like if you've been following her comedy of errors, after the 20th, she put on her website of what is not termed an assault weapon, and she put any 22 caliber rifle.
Yeah,
Well, that's an AR and an AK. Oh, not AK, an AR. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's an AR. It's the 223 and the 5.56 is a 22 caliber round, which is the diameter of the bullet. The bullet's different, but it's a 22.
Yeah.
So it just shows how little she knows,
Yeah.
and she's just trying to be
Yeah,
like
she's-
the flag waver for the country.
She's already issued a number of corrections and corrective statements on her own directive and on the frequently asked questions part of her website. So she's kind of going at things blind and just making up the rules as she goes.
On all my videos that I do on Maura Healey, I get 1 thumbs down on every one of the videos. Maybe it's her, but it just goes to show how little that they know. She's just making reinterpretations of the law because she can't make a law.
But think about the absurdity of law enforcement via an FAQ document.
Exactly.
I mean, and that's really where we are right now.
That's what she's doing.
It's a moving target. So even if you quote unquote wanted to comply, what do you comply with? Today's version or last week's version
Right.
or next week's version?
Did you hit refresh
Yeah.
on the browser
Well,
before you
that's
came?
what
Yeah,
she's done with
exactly.
the law. So
Right.
we're in compliance after 94.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
And then as of July, we're not in compliance.
Correct.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally ridiculous.
Right.
It is.
But your compliance may also have changed since the directive.
According to an FAQ.
Yes.
Exactly.
Right.
You have one of the guns that she says is illegal, now you're a felon. Does that mean they take all your guns now?
Theoretically, the way the law works, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
The other disturbing one that I read in when I'm reading her documentation was she has a sentence in there that any gun that was manufactured for a military purpose. As far as I know, every single gun made was made for a military purpose.
Well, even worse, all SF, the Army, every branch has gone to Glock now for their sidearm. So now, even if Glock is approved in the state, now they're a military weapon.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
What happens if you say you go out of state to buy one where you can do it legally? You
Can't bring it in.
Can't bring it in.
Can't bring it in.
Can't bring it
The only way to do that would be go through an FFL and have it transferred. Find one that'll do it.
And
Ain't gonna happen.
that's another thing that she said, which is if she really truly cared about gun violence, which is what she says that she cares about, she wouldn't have said this. She said any gun dealer who has a surplus of these now illegal guns can sell them out of state. So we don't care if New Hampshire or Maine buys them, just as long as they're not in mass. So gun violence in New Hampshire and Maine's okay, just as long as it's not in mass. So I mean, if she truly cared about people and like she claims, she wouldn't have said that. She clearly is doing it for political gain in mass.
Same thing. We have a handful of dealers who deal just to law enforcement agencies. And the question that came up the week that this happened was they asked her office, and it was in writing, all right, say Douglas Police Department wants to order 15 ARs this week. Can I keep the stock and sell it to them? And her answer was no. What she has to do is Douglas PD has to have their agent come down, make the purchase, and pay for it. they have to order from whoever Colt Glow, whoever they're getting it from, right, and get that number of firearms shipped and have them removed in a 30-day period. Otherwise, the transaction can't happen. So you can't even, as a dealer, their livelihood is the sale of the weapons. They can't keep stock on hand, even if they can sell it to out of state. Who's gonna? I mean, if you or I, if we make a purchase, are we gonna wait for that person to order the gun, or are we gonna go to somebody who has it on hand?
Yeah.
So she's taking food out of their mouths. There's already one dealer that I know of that went out of business. There are a couple others that are floundering right now, and that's why Pullman Arms actually Worcester jumped in the lawsuit, because they're looking at a loss too. So not only does she not care about gun safety in Massachusetts, she's putting businesses out of business. And
Jared, can a law enforcement officer buy an AR-15 personally?
yes, they still have the law enforcement exemption.
So I don't understand that.
They have to buy it on department letterhead, and the chief has to say it's for use, but they can buy one personally, yes.
Okay.
Just like with the Glocks before, only law enforcement could purchase a Glock.
Right, but from what I'm hearing from some of my friends who are still on the job, some FFLs are not touching that.
Okay.
Interestingly, Uxbridge Town Meeting just a couple nights ago authorized the purchase of some AR-15s for deployment in the cruisers. So
That's fun.
So we'll see how that plays
It's
out.
gonna be fun.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting.
Getting back to the basics of the Second Amendment, I mean, it was designed so that if a vote doesn't overthrow the government, the citizens would have the power to,
Right.
forcibly overthrow a tyrant government. Ronnie Barrett, he had weapons sent back from the state of California for repair.
Right.
And when they asked for them back, he said, well, if the citizens of your state can't own them, either can you.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's my point. If you have a law enforcement officer that can purchase these firearms personally, not for use in their squad car, but they can have them as a personal firearm, that doesn't make any sense to me. Why can they and we can't?
Yeah.
It's a great question to ask the Attorney General. Yeah.
Well, if you just go back to the amendment itself, there's a reason why it's the only amendment that says shall not be infringed.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's the only one that's infringed on a daily basis.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Anything else, gentlemen?
Everybody, thank you so much for the dialogue this morning. It's
Yeah.
great to hear your thoughts on this. It's important to us.
Yeah.
You may feel like you're swimming upstream, and you are to some degree, but I've got two documents here saying that there are a significant number of legislators who are on the side of the law here, and that we're going to continue to work towards getting a resolution on this. I do suspect it's going to take a court case to do it, and we're already in progress there. But anything we can do legislatively, let us know, and we're going to keep pushing.
In the future.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Keep from happening. I mean, we're 100% on your side in this fight. Completely understand the level of frustration and anger and fear about where you stand legally, but we're 100%. At least we are 100% on your side in this.
It's just ballot box in 2018.
Yep.
Now we're just gonna vote out all these damn Democrats.
That's a good idea right there.
Is there a way to impose something for the future where one person's interpretation of an existing law can't change the way it is? Is there something that's been put in place to stop it from here on so it doesn't happen further?
And that's a bill that Senator Don Humison out in Westfield filed, which we had talked about earlier. His language, the language of his filed bill, puts very stringent limitations on the authority of the Attorney General's office specifically to conduct these future such directives. So that's a bill, again, realistically speaking, I don't expect a bill filed by a Republican limiting government authority to pass in Massachusetts. That's just the reality of the situation. But yes, we are pursuing that exact course of action.
When it comes up for a vote.
Yeah, no, I'm sure he'll refile it next session, and then when it gets to committee hearing, hopefully we get a big turnout.
Yeah.
In your daily course of business, how often does this topic come up?
Almost every day.
Very frequently.
And what, how many people are on board with this? As far as I know, I've seen the signatures on that piece of paper. What?
I would say 1 out of every 10 people I talk to agrees with the Attorney General, if it's that high.
Really?
Yeah. if it's that high. That's 1/10 of the people I talk to. Now, naturally, you tend to talk to people of like mind more than you
Yeah,
don't.
right.
But even at that, very, very few people I talk to say, yeah, this is a good idea. We agree with her.
We're less than 2 weeks away from the election. There aren't a lot of seats up for Massachusetts, but there's a thing called gun vote, #gunvote on Twitter. NSSF is doing it. There's a questionnaire. Goal also has one on their webpage. They grade everybody running for election on how they see the Second Amendment and Massachusetts specific questions on what we're going through right now.
Yeah.
So if you have friends who are of voting age and live in a district where there's a vote, show them that webpage, because it could change the opinion of who they're going to vote for.
One contested seat that would be significant is Jen Casey. She's our governor's counsel. The governor's council approves judicial nominees from the governor. Jen Casey has always been and will continue to be a strong Second Amendment supporter.
Regularly seen at Singletary shooting on her own. So.
So she's got a contested race. She's really the only one in the area, but she would cover this whole area. So I would strongly encourage you to continue to support her, because she'll have Second Amendment interests in mind when considering judicial nominees, which is important.
One more quick thing. Next week, there's another rally that Goal is sponsoring up at the State House steps. I don't know if you guys know about it. But there's a person on Maura Healy's staff who is directly involved with what she did, as well as the Freedom of Information violations, Christopher Barry Smith. The governor, who's supposed to be on our side, is rewarding him with a judicial appointee. And the governor's council votes on it to appoint judges or not. And it was going to be last Thursday, but we had a whole bunch of people that were going to show up, and somehow it got pushed back to next week. So the 7th, I think it might be the day before, but it's on their webpage. If you can make it there, please make it there. It's 11 o'clock in the morning, right on the State House steps. Sorry, guys, if you didn't know. But show your support, because that person is directly involved with infringing your rights, and they're looking to become a judge, and we know what would happen if that takes place.
Very good.
One other quick question on a legal. I go to North Carolina and I regularly bring my guns. I have a permit
Freedom's
that's legal
nice,
in the
isn't it?
state of North Carolina. If I come back to the state and get stopped, are they going to let me back in with my own guns?
The way the law is, if you're in transit with your firearms, first you need to make sure you follow the law for every state you're going through.
Yeah, New Jersey.
Yeah. As long as you're in transit with no, if you know you're just passing through, you're good to go, federally.
Okay.
If there's no planned stops. If there's a planned stop, like say you're going to stay the night in New Jersey, you better follow all their laws, call the troopers, let them know what's going on, and follow whatever they tell you. Whatever hoop they're going to give you to jump through, jump. But if, say, you're driving through the Jersey Turnpike, you blow a tire, it's not a planned stop, you're still covered by the federal law.
I'm talking about like coming back into Massachusetts if I get
If it's
stopped.
legal in
If it's
Mass,
legal here,
It's still legal here. Yeah.
It'd still be okay.
but they have to be locked and unloaded.
yeah, pink stickers, flowers, fuzzy dice on them.
Then you're in violation of storage laws.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're in a lot of trouble.
Gentlemen, thank you for coming. I
Absolutely.
appreciate it. I know
Happy to
it's
be here.
Saturday. I know election time's here and it's in the morning. I know I'm tired, so I'm sure you guys are too.
Happy to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.